What's going on, guys? It's Halsey Schider with the Helicopter Podcast. And if you can't tell, I got my Robinson sweatshirt on, even though it's like 90 degrees out. But I'm doing this in celebration of today's podcast because I have what seems to be a bit of a regular back on the show, my good friend and the CEO of Robinson Helicopters, David Smith. David, welcome back to the Helicopter Podcast. How are you?
Doing great, Holly. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, David, I felt like the reason why I originally reached out, I'm excited to talk about some of the updates that are coming out on the R66 and extended component lives and things like that. But I'm also just excited to kind of dive in to your journey so far since we talked last time at Heli Expo. But of course, before we dive into that, big shout out to Vertical HeliCASTS for making this podcast possible. We love what MHM is doing with the Vertical HeliCASTS platform, making it your one-stop shop for everything helicopter podcasts. So we're grateful for them, and we're grateful for all of our sponsors, including, of course, Robinson Helicopters. I have all swag today. I got in honor of you, David, my Robinson pen, got my Robinson sweater, and then my favorite, because it holds my favorite beverage, is my Robinson mug that I actually got while at the safety course. This was included in like the little package that everyone gets.
Coveted mugs that not everyone gets, and we didn't have those in our conference rooms until just recently, and so now I too get to drink from one of those blessed mugs.
This is a very nice mug. I had a great time. Thank you again for having me at the safety course. A little bit of a tease here at the end of September. We're going to be posting a video and an article in conjunction with MHM Publishing on the vertical side of an experience that I had a few months back at the Robinson safety course. It had been about 15 years since I had come down to Torrance. At that time, I was flying the R22 and doing the R22 course. And so it was really fun to come back, when I was a baby pilot then, and now I'm not such a baby pilot. It was fun to come back to the course. And even though I'm coming with a lot more of experience and a commercial life of flying behind me, I took away so many cool things. So very excited about the safety course, and actually some changes with the safety course. Is anything that you want to talk about that today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing we have started to teach, we've taught 3 classes of our CFI standardization course, which is an extension of kind of an advanced version of the safety course aimed at those folks that are choosing to be professional instructors. Helps us all get on the same page about how to train in a Robinson and maintain safety while you train. Also, make sure you cover topics that we see that really come back and challenge the fleet safety later in the individual pilots' lives. So it's a great program. The team had been planning this from long before I was around, but as soon as I got in, I love the investment in training, the payoff that you get from engaged customers, and obviously safer and more prepared pilots. It's all really important for Robinson. We play a large role in training new pilots all over the world, so we want to make sure we invest in that with programs like the CFI course.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and I love that you guys are doing the CFI course. I'm excited to maybe even attend that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, just throwing it out there. If Leanne is listening, so just keep that in mind.
Just remember, it's pass fail, so you don't always pass on that one, Halsey. So it's tough. You gotta get prepped and ready, and
that's a little scary. I mean, I don't want to, toot my own horn, but I was, kind of like the guy at Hillsborough for a long time with the rod. That was many years ago, though. I had hair, just to give you an idea of how long ago that was. I think it's so important. When I became a flight instructor, I was 20 years old, I think, and, flying in the R22. And when you're a lower time guy, obviously flight schools for the most part are really good about you're not going out and doing 180 or 0 speeds on your first day, right? That you work into autos. You're teaching your private guy how to hover and normal approach, normal takeoff. But it's a tall order.
Mm-hmm.
Helicopters just inherently, of course, are have that level of risk, and so being an instructor, I think anytime you can go and refine skills and then learn things that you maybe didn't learn at your flight school or whatnot, specifically from the factory guys. I mean, I had the pleasure of flying with Simon I've heard Simon's name for,
A legend.
my entire,
Yeah,
yeah,
legend.
my entire helicopter career. So if you are approaching your CFI and you haven't done the safety course, I highly recommend it. And if the safety course is, or excuse me, if the new CFI course is available for you, I would also recommend that. It's just putting more tools in your toolbox, and so
Mhm.
very cool to hear about that. And big thanks again. And just again as a teaser, we'll have an article out and a video here shortly. Very fun. Loved meeting the people there. The BattleBots guy was there. The guy that started BattleBots was
Our customers are awesome. They're from everywhere, you know.
yeah, I was like, man, this guy loves BattleBots because everything about he had everything, And I'm like, are you associated? He's like, yeah, I'm the guy that started it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I had a good time. So David, it's been 6 months since we met at Heli Expo. That was a great time, by the way. Our first time doing in-person podcasts. Are you going to be at European Rotors?
We will. We actually have a big
Nice.
contingent. A lot of the new leadership team that we brought in, and marketing and business development, and our customer success VP, Randy, we're all going to be out there. Obviously, Europe's a huge market for us, and something we really want to start to be more active in these major trade shows around the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, very excited. We'll have to connect there as well. Be heading off to Amsterdam and excited to see you guys there. So 6 months, first as the big headlines during Heli Expo for Robinson specific was the fact that you were taking over from Kurt and essentially the first non-Robinson to be at the helm of the company in the company history. And I don't know, I'm just so fascinated. I love business. I'm entrepreneurial, and business to me is fascinating. And Robinson is extremely fascinating to me because it truly is like an American dream story. Helicopters being built in garages, tail rotor blades being heat treated in ovens. I mean, and then to go to the factory now, and I had this cool
Yeah.
time lapse actually on the video we
Oh
created,
yeah.
and
Awesome.
it's this whole walkthrough, and it's like, oh my god, this thing is massive. So, what has it been like to be the leader of this company? Just kind of fill me in on the last 6 months.
Well, first, I mean, it is a dream job, and I think anybody who listens to your podcast would trade places with me willingly, despite all the challenges of running a business. There are challenges, of course, but got a great team, fantastic groups of folks, families that are multi generational employees. We've got a bunch of folks celebrating their 40th year anniversaries coming up in the fall. We have just a real blessed organization. We've been doing things to help tell that message to our employees. We did a lot of filming of the stories of our customers. Some of that was to share the customer stories to the world, but some of that was to share it with our employees. That really you can be head down and productive and make an aircraft every day or parts every day, and you don't think about all the great things that the product do in the world. So we've been trying to help get the folks in the factory here to feel even more connected to the product as it goes around the world and changes lives. So that's been really exciting to help bring that sort of story home for the group here. We've also been looking at a lot of things that, Robinson has been a product company for all of its 50 years. So we've been staffing heavily in the engineering and the team that helps build new products. And so I'm not going to tell you, not this time, Halsey, but
Come
soon.
on, give me
Um,
the early
uh,
access,
yeah,
David. Come on.
we've got all kinds of fun. So we've announced some things that are public. Our partnership with United Therapeutics that includes a hydrogen powered R66, and we currently have an R44 running on hydrogen today. It is in development work and a lot to learn there, but it's one of those things that could be part of certain customer segments really ideal operating for the next decade. And we're going to be part of leading that charge. So products have been really important to us these last 50 years, and it's going to continue to be. We've more than doubled the engineering team, a lot of it since Heli Expo. So got a great group of folks they're helping to revitalize the existing products and do some fun, exciting things in new products. So looking forward to
It's
sharing that.
it's funny. The United the hydrogen project. I know the broker that's actually supplying you guys with the R66 on
That's
that
great.
one.
That's great.
Um,
It's so funny because they've bought several products from us over the years back before we got actively involved. and they're so good at buying these aircraft and get them into mod that they don't need any help from us to buy a helicopter. They got it.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, we've been working it with them. In fact, today we had to square some things up. It's a used helicopter, right? So there's always a couple
Yeah.
little things that need to be adjusted, but it's been actually great working with their team. Out of confidence, I'll leave names out, but the gentleman that we've been, yeah,
Yeah, they have some
it's
really great folks, and that's one of the things that this industry is all about talent and people, and part of how we select the partners we work with and the projects we commit ourselves to are the caliber of the teams, and so the UT team is absolutely stellar and has been doing this for a long time. So we want to help them reach their goals and climb higher, faster. So we're doing those things that are going to help them be successful on the certification side and then get into the manufacturing side together. So that's exciting. But in the big picture, things we've tried to also focus on in the factory in these last 6 months are helping customers really get closer and faster service. So we've really put a lot of emphasis on. I've had some of my team go out to visit customers and spend time at sites, see service centers and dealers all around the U.S. and some around the world. I was in Brazil not that long ago, and I'm headed to England in a couple weeks to meet with some of our dealers over there. These visits are obviously mixed, discussing strategy for the business, way we can grow together, but also just being close, listening to them about all the things that we can improve on. So there's a long list of things that we can improve on, as everybody has that. But we've been really focused on things like warranty improvements, so that it's a faster, more visible process. There's not You send it from a far customer operation in a distant country, and you just hope that it comes back. Now it's a much more personal process that will help us connect to those customers and what they're seeing out in the world. Same thing on cores. So for you and your side work that you do with aircraft sales, cores are important. They're a big part of the value when you go through an overhaul cycle. So we're going to make that easier for customers and more predictable. So we've done some changes already on that. We were overhauling main rotor blades in a way that was not good for anybody, and a lot of complexity in shipping and moving and all that stuff. And all we were really doing was saving one component in the whole stack up. The rest of it was not reused, so it was not particularly high value add for everybody. So we've made some changes like that just make the operating cost of the aircraft easier and simpler and all that. Of course, we talked about the life extensions. That's an example of our sustained commitment to keeping the operating cost best in the industry and not letting anybody else come close.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty big news. That was kind of the impetus of reaching out to chat with you today. I want to dive deep on the extension there. Um, I think that this is still very new, and I've talked to a couple friends within the industry, and I think I have a bit of a grasp of what the components are, but I got to be honest, I don't fully understand the full scope
Yeah.
of what is actually happening. What does it mean for consumers, operators? And so I thought, hey, there's no better person to talk to than David on this. So
Yeah.
if you wouldn't mind, just kind of walk me through
Sure.
what we can expect and what this all now means for specifically the R66, and then maybe do we expect this similar extensions on other airframes as well?
We know you love helicopters. That's why you're here. But are you ready to make it a career? Hillsboro Heli Academy has been making dreams of flying helicopters come true since 1980. Visit us at flyhaa.com and dream big.
Yeah, so I'll first start with saying just fatigue lives and retirement lives in general. The types of things that show up is either an hour or a calendar base, and some other OEMs have more complex systems to track landing cycles or REN counts or various things. All of those are part of the development process for aircraft, and they involve a mixture of aircraft testing, component testing, sometimes multiple samples of those, so that you can build out a better understanding of how parts break in the life of them. So it's a learning process. And when we certified the R66, we did a lot of work on how to substantiate the lives, and we even then knew that some of these parts could go further. The challenge is, until you get them into service and you validate all of the testing inputs, the loads, the types of environmental operations that are out there, you just are never 100% confident. Corrosion plays a huge role in the lives of these components, and so we observed over many cycles the condition of parts that come back to the factory at the 2,000-hour event. That helped us. It also was built off of testing data we had done earlier in the development of the product. All those things were pieced as part of a certification program to substantiate these new lives. And it is to be expected, I think, when new products come out that you're going to learn. And so a lot of times that early initial set of lives may not be the final lives. But I think Robinson's done a great job over the years of not having really significant surprises and changes. And so in most cases, we're extending our lives in the Robinson fleet. We want to invest more in some of our legacy products to extend their lives too, but that takes some time and takes some testing. So I'm not making any promises, but we understand that particularly in our products, where every 2,000 or 2,200 hours, these aircraft go through a significant maintenance event, and we want to reduce the financial burden of that. So we're doing a lot of things to try to make that easier. In the years ahead, I definitely think we'll have some programs to make the financial side of that easier, so that it's more predictable for operators. That sort of thing is, I think, common in a lot of industrial equipment, where you're paying a maintenance kind of fee that helps keep your costs under control, season to season, year to year. So we're looking at ways to help standardize the finance side of it, and we're also just looking to practically extend the lives of these things. Another part that I did mention that is more related to the calendar life is we have had the feedback over many years that customers really want longer calendar lives, particularly for those operators who buy them for private use. They fly very few hours per year. And there's a great ecosystem we have of these private operators a lot of times getting to the end of their calendar and then using the aircraft in agriculture or selling it into a higher hour business. And I think I love how that at least uses the maximum from the parts on the aircraft. But in our case, we wanted to make sure that we are offering a good value for those private operators that are more time dominated rather than flight hours. And so we extended the main rotor and tail rotor blades after a lot of work, a lot of improvements we've put into those blades to make sure that they are robust over time to the environment and to the things that tend to age parts fast. So yeah, we've been excited about this for a while, but couldn't go public with it until we had all the parts lined up and started flowing into the aircraft. There are some customers, probably over the last 50 or so aircraft we've delivered, that have some of these parts on their ship right now. And that might include some parts going into overhaul kits. So it's important, if you've bought a 66 component on this list in the last 6 months, I would go take a look and see. It's a good chance you've got some of them in your sort of basket of goods.
And is it safe to say that everything now moving forward from that press release, kit-wise, or helicopters rolling off the assembly line, are fully equipped with the new components?
That's right. So the ship number 1410 and beyond, all those aircraft have the new revision levels for all the parts. So they are kind of fully benefiting from this. And we look back a few ships before that, some of them had that as well. So it's important to look at the list if you've taken delivery in the last couple months, but it's going forward, that will be the standard. And it leaves you with really kind of the same structure we've had on the R44 for a while, which is a 2,000-hour event that does some components, and then a 4,000 hour that does really the rest. And that splits the cost quite a bit. And from an economic perspective, you'll see if you ever get to buy a full cycle, this reduces the cost. We're not increasing the parts other than a slight little bit on the two kits, because we have two sets of orders to process and create, so kind of an additional processing cost. But really, when you add them up, this saves customers a ton of cost and defers it over those two cycles. So it's great for small businesses and private operators who are sensitive to the outlay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, and that's a true commitment to your customer. I love hearing you talk, by the way. It makes me wonder if like CEOs of other businesses are so knowledgeable about what they're doing. Like, you clearly, with your engineering background, your just background in this business, it's like you clearly know this business and you know what you're saying. So it's just it's
business
really,
is like surfing. If you're not on top of the wave, you're under it, right? So
yeah.
it's you got to be working hard to stay on top. I got a great team, and they help me keep up, and so I have a really great team that makes that possible. But it's a tough thing because customers also keep you on your toes. I get calls and emails from customers all over the world, and it's a great benefit, and certainly a challenge to keep it all straight.
Yeah, I can tangent on that real fast because it seems like one of the things that you've done, and that I want to go back to this because I'm not done. I still have more questions,
Yeah,
but
no worries.
one thing that I've noticed about you is like since we met, and this was actually before the announcement, and then of course during Heli Expo, you've been pushing this idea of being more personable, more approachable, kind of a different, newer Robinson, so to speak. And I feel like you, as the leader of the company, you've made yourself very accessible to clients, and I can see that that's great, but I can also see that that could be very challenging. How do you navigate that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of client requests that they just don't maybe know the full story of why certain things happen the way they do, or how it takes time and things like that. Has it
Yeah.
been challenging?
Well, it is almost like I view it as kind of like a trace around of the process and understanding how accurate things are in the organization, in our extended service network too, which is a big part of my sort of areas to go and understand better. And so I value those calls a lot, and I think I'll always value them, even if there's 10,000 of them calling every day, or 30,000 if we continue delivering. But I think it is it is important to me that I understand those things. So it makes me better as a leader, more effective as a person who asks questions to my team. And so I think it is just part of the way that I like to understand things. So always be curious. One of my team members, Robin, who you've met, really likes to emphasize the Ted Lasso "Be Curious" scene.
Thanks,
I
Ted.
love it too. Great one. But I think that's my kind of general style. Is I assume a lot of times these customers have tried to reach other paths and have not found. So when they're coming to me, it's likely the result of some frustration, and that is again, I can't fault anybody in the chain because it's a very complex business and it has a lot of different layers to it, in terms of time zones and regulatory authorities and all sorts of challenges. So I want to be engaged in that, so I better understand the complexity and how to best solve all the many problems and prepare for the future. So it's a value decision. I don't sleep as much as I used to, but
I was
actually
gonna say,
I'm
do you? I was
yeah.
gonna say, do you sleep?
I do. I mean, but it is one of those a perfect example of where you choose how you can be most effective in your role, and I think this one has proven to be pretty good because it gives my team a better sense that I do care about all of their individual jobs. But I'd like to think that it also gives me perspective, so I don't overreact if something bad goes on. I'm aware of the material or the history of it, so it keeps it from being a big blow up of any kind or
Sure.
surprise. I mean, you got to manage perspective in all this. And that's the only way you get it.
Yeah, no, totally. I've just been very surprised, pleasantly surprised by the access, just because it's not really the case around the industry to be able to actually have such access. I'm not texting other OEMs leaders. I'll put
Right.
it that way.
I've got a customer of mine who we've been working to get an aircraft and working with our dealers to do it. And he has my cell phone. He messages all the time, and he always apologizes. And I tell him, you don't have to apologize. Like, that's what this is all for. So,
Yeah, I mean
but
that's crazy.
it is funny. It's John, if you're listening, I'm talking about you.
Well, that's and that's a cool thing, and I think that's something that's energized me about Robinson is new blood, and you're leading that charge. So I think it's cool. Backtracking now to the extended service life from that tangent, I just can't help myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Stupid question. Sorry if it is, but
No, that's right.
so I understand that the tail rotor, main rotor blades have now been increased. What, 12? Is it now 15?
15. Yep.
And if I look at, say, a life limited component section of an R66 right now, I see everything's on hourly, 2000 or 4000. There's some variation, but very much standard to the 2000. And then we have main rotor, tail rotor, which historically were 12-year life limited components.
Correct.
Does that also now mean that the overhaul that's calendar predicated is now going bumped back to 15 years, or is there still some type
So
of 12-year?
that's actually in work right now, and we're trying to best determine how to take a 12-year event where there's a number of things that are replaced, and hoses and the elastomeric cords and things that we use. Many of those components are replaced, We have to spend more time studying the degradation of those parts under a lot of different environments to be comfortable extending those types of components to 15. And we have some great customers who are coming up on 12 years that have both willingness to send their aircraft back to us for overhaul in certain cases, and for us to be a participant in the overhaul when they're doing it at our service centers. So I think we'll have the answer before too long, but no matter what, it's significantly lower than most people are expecting. So the 12-year for the 66 has been focused on since they developed 44 and tried to make it as lean as possible. So when you go in and look, it doesn't have as much teeth, and it's not fully replacing a lot of the components like the 44 originally had. So I think it is already a very significantly lower cost process. And an example, a 12-year main rotor gearbox inspection, now when those come back to the factory, it's a relatively quick job. Open it up, look for corrosion, do a fairly quick inspection of any wear, excess wear. Most cases, we really aren't seeing that in the units, and then do some changes for bearings. Fairly simple things that we can do relatively quickly. So it's a substantially lower cost event. It's a lot faster, and I think long term that could be extended to 15. But we have some more science and certification work to do.
Yeah, that would definitely be pretty awesome, I feel like, and looking forward to hearing more about that as it comes. When it comes to the other components, obviously main rotor, tail rotor blades, calendar limited, or well, time and calendar, but we're extending the calendar in this case. What are some of the other components that are now going to have new life?
So we spent a lot of time on the main rotor gearbox, and so most of the components in that system are going to be at the 4,000 hour limit. Just the upper bearing is still left as a 2,000 hour part. So the main rotor drive shaft, for example, which is a very very expensive part. It's a very tricky part to build. It's analogous to like the masts of our competitor products. In my previous life, I chased masts all over and got to see how hard those are to work with. And it's got a similar composition. It's got a similar process to make it. I watch them crank them in the factory every day. So those are a real advantage to go to 4,000 hours. The pinions inside the main rotor gearbox, the housing in the main rotor gearbox, those components all go to the 4,000 hour limit. A lot of the components that classically have been surrounding that, so frames, welded frames, those types of components all shift, and the struts that support the frames. When you go and look at the other things that are not included in the 4,000 hour, it really comes down to the main rotor hub and the blades, like we talked about, the tail rotor hub and blades, and the tail rotor gearbox components. Those components are also used between the 44 and the 66. So you can imagine when we developed and certified the product, we were using it for the R66 with a lot of history on it from the 44. So there may be still some life available in those in the future, but honestly, we upgraded those into the 66 family, so they may be more close to their sort of what we can produce. But you can bet that now that we've done this effort, my new focus with the team is to try to drive cost out of those parts, so that the tail rotor gearbox, if we can't get there by extending the life, we'll get there by reducing the cost, and that's the kind of stuff we're trying to work on.
Yeah, very cool, and I'm sure that was a very welcome an exciting press release for many owners, operators, and I'm glad that we're talking about it. We're going to push this podcast as hard as we can so more people can learn about kind of the inner workings of it and make sure that they've kind of fully grasped it. So it does sound like if you are ordering an overhaul kit now, or you're receiving an aircraft or ordering a new aircraft, it's going to be coming off the line with these new components. But if you have an existing R66, like a lot of my clients on the helicopter side, a used R66 that's been flying, it's been in the fleet, those aircraft are not equipped. Is there any
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
There's some gray areas, like if you consider the tail rotor blades that we've been replacing in the fleet due to the service bulletin, a lot of those components have been already compatible with the longer life. So it gives the if you have a service bulletin compliant tail rotors blade set, you have the 15-year blades
Okay.
already. So there's some of those things we've done, and certainly a lot of folks have had main rotor blades replaced over the last year or so, and many of those components have been built to the latest standards, so they get the extra 3 years.
Okay, interesting. So some of the main rotor blades, you're saying that if they've
Yes.
come out in the
Yeah,
last
and that's why it really is important. We were cautious about communicating it until we had all of the components rolling through the factory and entering the production aircraft and the overhaul kits. So obviously factories are such complex beasts. We have parts finishing all the time. So we had flowed the changes in planning and changes in part component manufacturing months before, and so it's just valuable if you've got a part recently from Robinson, particularly if you know that it came from the factory and didn't go to a service center and wait a couple months. So if it was manufactured date in the last few months, it likely is compliant with at least some of the parts on this list.
And if an owner operator is interested in trying to determine if that is the case, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, so their logbook would have these parts listed with the rev level that is on their aircraft, and so you can pretty quickly look at it and see. And so the service letter that we released kind of ask folks to go through, look at the list, update their logbook for the right hour limit and the right calendar limit, so that they have a book that is accurate for their configuration now. So that's one of the many things that once we do these changes, we know that the whole world has to go kind of check notes and make an update. And I think that's just part of aviation. Unfortunately, that people have to go do some bookkeeping.
Yep, that's very much a big part of aviation.
Yeah.
I would say records specifically can be the end of me sometimes, actually.
Right. I remember you shared some of the challenges of buying aircraft with less than perfect records. It is one of those things. I wish that we may put a portion in some of our training courses just to emphasize how it can change the value of your aircraft when you try to sell it, and the difficulty of getting it properly serviced. So it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the amazing things of a Robinson helicopter is it's great for individuals that are hobbyists and passionate and always wanted to be helicopter pilots, and they enter in, they learn how to fly. It has the right price point, it has the right performance, but it's individuals that they have different careers and different things. They're doctors and lawyers and real estate, and I think one of the things, I think it's actually a systemic issue in training, and I've talked to a lot of flight schools about this, is there's not enough, in my opinion, enough emphasis on the importance of understanding recommended maintenance. And I
Yes.
don't think it's really any fault of an owner operator, especially a private guy. It's slightly confusing, right? Because you have OEM recommended maintenance. One could even argue a 12-year OEM recommended overhaul is actually not necessarily mandated for Part 91 FAA, right? FAA is
Right.
saying,
We do get that request a lot. It's not in Chapter 4, so it is a different set of requirements.
yeah,
And I do think truly, these folks all are of means, these businesses that run and are used in commercial applications. It is, if we can, we're not, this is a OEM, of course, so we're always, thinking big picture of the fleet. We really want folks to go through those. We're trying very hard to make them less economically painful or less time consuming. And we want you flying. We don't want folks to have to be waiting on parts or maintenance. But these are things that we've seen failures from, and they educate why we include them on our lists for recommended maintenance. And so it is one of those things. We're going to continue to drive the cost down. We're going to continue to drive the education up. And I want to make sure that in the future, our service center network is fast and responsive and well stocked with parts, so that these things can be as quick as needed to keep pace with our customers. So that's a big priority for me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely it's just one of those points. It's difficult because it's again, for an owner who's operating and they're using this as their business, whether it's 91 or 135, they get it. They understand the business. It's not a foreign thing, but coming into it as just a private hobbyist, private pilot type situation, it's just an industry-wide thing, not systemic to Robinson. In fact, one of the reasons Robinson is great for that individual is the ease of actual use. What I always say, like, do you want a 40-page MTR report of maintenance tracking, or do you want a 2-page? If because Robinson will give you a 2-page tracking, and everything's going to be pretty much on the same cycle. And then their recommended intervals are super easy, but there's just a disconnect. So if you're listening to the podcast, you're a private owner, make sure that you are asking your mechanic, hey, am I doing the interval, the OEM, the Robinson recommended, maintenance? Obviously you have to do your annual. You don't necessarily even have to do your 100-hour, right? If you're just following FAA. But again, best practice.
One of the big ones is service bulletins is a great example of that. And it's extremely important. It takes a lot of work from an OEM to write all these documents and get the appropriate reviews done at the FAA, because service bulletins get FAA review. And, for us, when we put them out, it is the result of significant thought and concern. And so we always tell people, I know people can push the limits on some of these, but it is intentional that we have these service bulletins public and easy to find, easy to see. And we want folks to comply with them. We try very hard for anything that has a part change or a financial implication at all. We basically sell those kinds of things at cost. And not even like the good cost, but like the cost that it costs for the parts. We lose money, all the shipping and the crating and stuff. But the reality is that's part of running a safe and healthy business. So for sure, recommended maintenance really is one of those things. I hope people think twice and do the recommended maintenance. It's not like your cars. Some folks can defer maintenance in cars without consequence, but aviation is obviously very different.
Yeah, you don't really want to mess around. The incredible part is you'll sometimes run into an aircraft in the fleet that's been doing things or been operating for a very long time, and they're still running, and it's a testament to how incredible these machines are. And I really got that sense when I was in the factory, just how well these things are put together. But just because they can doesn't mean that one should, right? So
Yeah.
I'm always an advocate for following the guidelines of the OEM, and then of course following the FAA. And that's also, I think we're so used to thinking like, oh, the government is superior. But when it comes to actual maintenance, the FAA doesn't mandate a ton for Part 91. So it's not really like it's a superior way of following, right? So
Right.
one of the first meetings that you and I had, and then we've talked about it several times, and then I got to fly with it, of course, when I was down in Torrance. And I'm just curious to hear it. I feel like it's been close to a year, if not just under, of you and I chatting about the new design of the horizontal stabilizer, all the science and all the engineering and testing, I should say, is probably the right word, that went into understanding what was actually causing the roll. We've been living a lie. We thought it was more of the tail rotor thrust, but it kind of ends up, no, it's actually the positioning of the H-stab. And you guys made a very bold move, in my opinion, a very awesome bold move. I should preference that. And you guys came out with this new design. What has been the feedback? We're almost, I think, about a year.
We're about a year on the original 66 approval was October of last year. So yeah.
How many are now in the fleet, and what has been the overall feedback?
Yeah. So it's always tough to know exactly how many are on the aircraft. We've shipped over 1,000 and have, between the ones that are on the production ships and ones that came out as part of kits and also installation mod kits or new tail booms. So it's tricky to know which ones are flying because some folks buy them in preparation for maintenance events. But we are still waiting on approval for EASA and have had them in and doing testing earlier in the summer. And so all that's done. We're optimistic we'll get approval in the months ahead, and hopefully we can start to get those customers to convert as well. We got about 2,000 plus aircraft in EASA countries, and I think a lot of those could adapt pretty quickly. We've done, I think, a really good job these last 6 months of, since the 44 and 22 were approved, educating folks even more about the benefits of it from a safety perspective. There are many examples that we've kind of rewound the clock in our minds that we think these stabilizer changes could really help folks in a difficult situation on their worst day and potentially give them a little extra buffer of safety beyond the flight envelope. So we're pretty proud of the results, but we definitely want more folks to adopt the change and make that commitment to safety. So we're continuing to offer the effectively zero the at cost price for the foreseeable future. It'll be out certainly since the EASA cert has gone longer than we had hoped. It will extend well beyond the end of this year, and we're working hard to get all of the final certifications approved, and then we'll really try to do outreach on the fleets that we know have not yet maybe started to make their change. So it's a really important project for us, and is really still we just made an adaptation to the R-22. Had some unique older aircraft versions of the R-22 that had challenges with the vertical fin and the clocking of the fin and the various positions of the rivets. And so we made changes to include a more comprehensive kit that lets that be a non-issue for customers. And those kinds of things, when you build aircraft over 50 years, you have some aircraft that are a little bit of an odd configuration. And so we've adapted that to make it easier on customers modifying in the field. So lots going on in stabilizer world. We've got team members building somewhere on the order of 40 a week. Many of those are going to production, but a lot of them are going on to kits and aftermarket.
Yeah, I had a customer put it on during an overhaul recently. In fact, I was just visiting with them in Utah and saw it on the aircraft for the first time. I think I even did a little Halsey video about it. So you can go out and check out my Instagram where I'm talking about the new design there. I've heard only positive feedback. I've obviously been able to experience it firsthand. In fact, when I did my In Helicopter podcast with Chris, it's been a long time, but I'm pretty sure it was with Chris.
It's Chris, yeah.
We actually were flying through the mountains a little bit. Things were getting a little bit bumpy. And again, it's not a tool that we're testing, right? We're not out there and doing a low G pushover, but it's for those times when you're in turbulence, unexpected turbulence or clear turbulence or expected turbulence flying through the mountains, whatever it may be. And so it's really cool that's been implemented. You bring up certification and it's taking longer with EASA. I know that at Heli Expo, Heli Expo is interesting for me because half of Expo for me is like my business helicopter, and half of it's like being part of the media, I guess, right, with the podcast and MHM and things like that. And so I get to kind of hear both sides, and I get to hear a lot of things. And one of the common things that I heard, not just from Robinson, but the other OEMs and other people within the business, is certification. This issue, I should say, with certification. Is it getting any easier? Is it still? I'm just curious to hear.
Yeah. So from my side, I love certification. I think in other OEMs should love it as well. I think it is. It gives us a goal to strive for. It gives us a high bar to achieve. It certainly keeps us on our toes. So it's not things you worry about for any business or any sports team or anything is folks drinking their own bathwater or not really getting enough perspective on the work they do. And so I love the way that we've got certification process. I think the challenge, like many government agencies and any even private agencies, it's a challenge of resources. And I think I'm a huge advocate for the FAA needs more resources at every level. They need more money to support airport modernization. They need more to focus on some of the newer technologies. They need more on rulemaking and basic certification activities like these, continuing airworthiness, inspections, all those things. And I think I met with one of the FAA inspectors the other day, and we talked about how I think proactive training and classes they can teach about the things they see in their inspections could help Part 145 operators, Part 135 operators, the 91 Air Tour folks. All these areas need focus. And so when I consider certification, I'm really appreciative of the resources we have. I wish there were more of them, and particularly areas like flight tests. So pilots that choose to be part of the regulatory environment, I think that's they're saints. They need to be canonized or something, and we need more of them. I mean, and it's the same way in EASA. I just think that they have the challenge of a lot of CAAs, individual CAAs that also have obligations to manage, and then the EASA on top of that. So it adds a layer of additional roles, responsibilities, complexities between the countries, and so I think there's room for huge improvement in the future for them, and I look forward to engaging with them more at European Rotors. But I like the folks that are leading EASA, and I think they have a vision for the future, and they probably also need more resources. I think that's certainly a universal. When you hear me speak sometimes in other settings, like I post a lot on LinkedIn. My challenge with some of the newer regulatory areas, Mosaic being one in the FAA space, some of the effort around powered lift in both the training side, the operational rules, the aircraft cert side, all of those are interesting, but they are huge efforts that absorb a lot of resources and focus. And when you consider that in our industry today, if we want to pursue some of the cool projects around autonomy in the airspace, that is going to be a huge effort and resources. And so we have to pick. Today, the resources are heavily constrained, so we have to pick. And I think I would, any given day, I think I would prefer getting a stabilizer approved that saves lives and helps to improve operational safety around the world. And that's got to run through the FAA first to touch 10,000 plus aircraft in service. So I'd want them to focus on that. I'm a little selfish, of course, but I think that's my preference over some of the more speculative things that are being emphasized and prioritized today. So, for what it's worth, I'm biased, of course, but I think public safety, and you think about things like airport near misses and airport safety, that's a flying public, or oversight of manufacturers, big manufacturers like Boeing. Those are all public pursuits that need FAA resources. And I, as a taxpayer, I'd write the check today. I think it's worth our time.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of the fine line, right? Because you want to, the future is always innovating, but a lot of that innovation is taking away from today's certification, and it's kind of a weird spot. And I guess from an OEM's perspective, from your perspective, since you're such a large company, is there part of Robinson that can work with like the federal government to kind of help push, ideas through to our government, these men and women that are making decisions on, funding for the FAA and things like that?
This podcast is brought to you by HeliCASTS. Tired of listings that go nowhere? Exhausted by tire kickers who waste your time? Don't sell your helicopter alone. HeliCASTS handles the entire process from start to finish. So, if your helicopter is sat too long waiting for a buyer, contact the team at HeliCASTS today for your complimentary market valuation. Call 1-855-HeliCASTS, 1-855-735-5226, or email sales@helicopter.com. HeliCASTS. List it, sell it, done.
Yeah, I think, one of the big things that we certainly are going to become more active in are some of the trade organizations that have regular and continuing conversations with both legislators and some of the key advocates in other trade groups. And so there's networks of folks that can really put on a full court press for what is the ask from industry on federal budget plans and the like. And I think from our perspective, we got some great partners at VAI. We have great partners at Gamma, folks that speak on our behalf. I had a call last week with the National Association of Manufacturers, and some of those help us in improving the ability to do generalized manufacturing across the U.S. And some are more focused on aviation sector and sometimes vertical lift sector like VAI. All of them play a huge role in how we see our voice being conveyed to the elected officials and beyond. So yeah, we Robin, who you've met, we spend a good bit of time talking about how to influence those outcomes and the prioritization that we feel is important for our customers. It's really, in the end, it's always about our customers. And so if you think about the most simple example is there's only so much time in the day for the regulators, and the stabilizers approval took extra days because of the total resource available. And I think a future project, I want that to be less of an issue. I want to give them more resources. I want to make sure that they understand we appreciate the work they do, but we want to give them more resources so it's not just a never-ending backlog of things to approve.
Yeah, the stabilizer to me is like a key example of just the bureaucratic process of we're doing something to enhance safety, but yet it's taking so long. Again, no one's fault. It's a resource thing. So it's to me that's a prime example. You brought up Mosaic. Can you speak to that to our listeners that might not be familiar with that?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is from the big picture, Mosaic uses the successful work that light sport aircraft have had, the effect that it's had on bringing some innovation and more access to the sort of the skies from all parts of aviation. So there's a lot of smaller manufacturers to develop aircraft that are very cost competitive and allow for innovative technology to be deployed on them. That's done really well. Right at the airport here, we've got a great academy that uses sling aircraft for training, and I know that's making an impact on training pilots for the future. So that's been very successful. And Mosaic is the next chapter in that. It tries to expand out those limits to more types of products, more sizes and ranges and performance. There are positive aspects, but for sure, continuing the success. But one of the worries that we have is this iteration, Mosaic seeks to add rotorcraft to that with what is a higher risk product type. And for us, the concern would be that folks would train in a light sport equivalent rotorcraft and then fairly quickly, because of the pilot shortages out in the world, be pushed into a commercial application of much higher risk. And I think anyone who flies both helicopters and fixed wing would agree that helicopters are more challenging to fly. And you need, in a lot of cases, greater preparation, greater time seeing, the conditions that the world presents. So to me, the big concern that Robinson has about Mosaic is that it's too fast on lowering the potential airworthiness standard of an aircraft that could make a pilot, maybe oversimplifying the aircraft to the point where it doesn't really properly train them for advanced aircrafts they would fly. So we've got a great product in the R22, and we've got a great product in the R44 Cadet to help prepare pilots. We certainly love training pilots in this business, and I'm excited that there's potential for us to train some large militaries in the future with some of our products. We are actively working some campaigns to get into more militaries training using our R44 and R66 products. So I love training. I feel like we don't need Mosaic for rotorcraft. We provide a really good value, and you don't want to go where it potentially would lead us.
I mean, it's at the core of Robinson, and is what I'm to understand is like Frank,
Absolutely.
wanted to create an aircraft that was cost effective, not just for the private owner, but I mean, maybe indirectly wasn't thinking that it was going to be
Yeah,
so
he was.
prevalent.
From what I hear, he was always concerned that training had its special risks, and it was a concern for the business and for the risk of the operation. But it's proven itself as a trainer.
Yeah.
And one really interesting story. We've got some really fun development work going on here, and we're buying an aircraft out of a training role, and it's gone 20,000+ hours. It's been flying for 35 years or something. And so we're buying it off one of our customers so we can convert it into a test bed. I'm not going to tell you what I'm testing, but it's pretty exciting. And we love the
All these
story.
teases, all these
I know.
teases.
It's one of my favorite things to do, tease the media. But we absolutely love the story of an aircraft that's 3.5 decades in and going to get converted into a advanced aircraft test bed that super exciting to see. And so training is a mission these aircraft have held up for 10, 15 overhauls and 25, 30,000 flight hours, right? So
It's
super
incredible.
proud. We've got an outfit that I'm also trying to connect. We've got a lot of aspirations for Africa, and we've got a great flight school in Nigeria that uses R66s and produces a lot of pilots and has had all the maintenance capability and training capability local to Nigeria. And I think that is an incredible story. They've really certainly outperformed what a lot of people would have expected from such a humble, immediate, just sort of sprout out of the desert and build a training school. It's incredible.
Connect me with those guys. I would love to chat with them.
Yeah, we may bring you along. We're actually going to start doing some work to try to tell the story of Africa, and we have a phenomenal history there. Heavy in South Africa, some in Kenya and the north, and then certainly feeding the pilot pipeline in Nigeria. So we're going to tell that story more.
Man, yeah, that would be incredible. Producer Zach and I were just talking the other day. He lives near Troutdale, Oregon, and that's where Hillsboro Heli Academy is. Shout out to those guys, of course. Proud sponsor of the podcast and my alma mater, also producer Zach. And we were in a pitch yesterday for Helicopter. We were pitching, and we were using the fact that when we drive by Hillsboro, all the same R22 end numbers are the same end numbers from when him and I were there, 15 plus years ago. And it's just a testament that, hey, look, fly them out 2,200 hours, overhaul them, and put them back into service. And I mean, that's just the magic. Literally every single end number that I flew as a student at Hillsboro is still there. So it's so cool. Well, to wrap it up, you mentioned the name earlier, and I think I saw it in a press release about I think is it customer success representative?
Customer success. Yes. Never forget. You don't want to just support your customers. You want them to be successful.
Yeah. Yep. What is that? Yeah. So what does that mean exactly? It's Randy, I guess. I don't know him. Yeah, so, tell me about him and what that role is all about.
Super happy. We've got just great talent here, but Randy is a former R44 owner and knows the business and is a pilot. And he had previously done a lot of work with MD helicopters, and part of that experience led him to our radar. And we were looking for someone to take on the task of elevating our level of support, responsiveness, customer connection, kick it up a notch. And so Randy leads things including overhaul and tech support, customer service and order fulfillment, training, all those areas that, I'm very passionate about a lot of this business. Randy's probably got the biggest crunch of things that I really, really care a lot about. And so, he's got a high bar, but he's already exceeding it in my book. And we've got a lot of customer activity that I'm super excited to introduce Randy to more of our customers and service centers. But if any of our customers come to Torrance, he's one of the first people we want them to meet. So yeah, it's an exciting thing, and we've got a lot of projects that operators will feel. They'll feel it in the wallet. They'll feel it in the way that they feel when they reach for the phone and they want to ask a question of Robinson. They're going to feel like that is a pleasure. That it is it's one of those things that they frankly look forward to in their day, as opposed to, no one likes to call asking for either help or information to most products, but we can be better. And so we will. You'll see that.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's one of the points that you and I talked about at Heli Expo was that customer satisfaction across all OEMs was not high all the time, right? Customers felt slightly underrepresented, and so for you, I know that your initiative has always been customer facing. Again, you're accessible, you're texting your customers. You're a different breed, and to bring on a role of customer success, I mean, that's awesome. I'm excited to meet Randy. Hope I can connect with him as well. And I'm excited to see you and the entire Robinson team in Europe. Are you guys going to have an exhibit there as well then?
Yeah. We've got our dealers there are outstanding, and we're working together to present aircraft and just be ready to share all the fun things we've got on the horizon.
I can't believe November is just right around the corner. It feels like we were just at Expo last year. If you're not familiar with European Rotors and you're listening and you're in Europe, or even if you're not in Europe, it's a fantastic show. It's a growing show. It's not quite, VAI, formerly HAI, but it's getting there, and it's a fantastic place. For me, it's really fun because so much of the helicopter world is European, and so many of those students actually learned in the United States at Hillsboro and other flight schools around, just because of the cost of it. So when I went to European Rotors last year, I almost felt like I knew more people in Europe than I do when I'm walking the floor at HAI. So always a good time, and so excited that Robinson's going to be there this year. And actually, I remember texting you last year, like, "Hey, you going to be there?" And no, but we're there next year. So,
That's right.
I know that's been on the radar. So we're excited. If you are at European Rotors, stop by, say hi. I'm going to be at the MHM booth. We're going to be doing podcasting there. In fact, Dave, you and I should talk. We should talk to some of the cool people in Europe that are specifically using Robinson. I would love to.
Oh yeah,
love to podcast.
We got several big ones. We're training a lot of Europe's military, which people I think would be surprised to find that we have so many European countries training in our aircraft in the enemy's territory.
That's crazy. Yeah, hook me up with whoever I can talk with there that's European specific, because that's going to be the whole push. And we're excited to see you there. To our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Helicopter Podcast. It's because of you that I get to talk to cool people like David and not only educate myself, but I hope educate you and the industry. I truly am trying to create community within helicopters, a positive place where two people can come and talk about helicopter things, which we're all passionate about it. There's so much noise on social media and there's so much angst all the time. I feel like this can be a place where we just have a good time and talk about helicopters. The only thing we're not doing is drinking beer.
Right.
So, hey, David, I really appreciate you coming on. Third time. That's a record. I haven't had a guest on 3 times, and it's always a pleasure. I appreciate it. I look forward to catching up more. And again, to our listeners and to our sponsors, big thank you. We'll catch you all next time.
We know you love helicopters. That's why you're here. But are you ready to make it a career? Hillsboro Heli Academy has been making dreams of flying helicopters come true since 1980. Visit us at flyhaa.com and dream big.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
This podcast is brought to you by HeliCASTS. Tired of listings that go nowhere? Exhausted by tire kickers who waste your time? Don't sell your helicopter alone. HeliCASTS handles the entire process from start to finish. So, if your helicopter is sat too long waiting for a buyer, contact the team at HeliCASTS today for your complimentary market valuation. Call 1-855-HeliCASTS, 1-855-735-5226, or email sales@helicopter.com. HeliCASTS. List it, sell it, done.